So we're currently right now, I think it's May the 2nd. So we're about midway into springtime. And as you already know, I plant a lot of my seeds here indoors and start them indoors before transferring them outdoors. Now, with the first growing session, I went ahead and did the cabbage, the cauliflower, the broccoli, all the kind of frost hardy winter type vegetables that I can grow in the first session. And then during the second one, I started some tomatoes, some peppers that are cold tolerant. And I think I did about 6 different varieties of tomatoes this year. Now, these are peppers here. I'm not sure exactly what type of peppers these ones are. These look like mini sweet peppers. So I love eating mini sweet peppers. I pick them early before they get hot, and I can eat them just plain or in a salad, or I can go ahead and dip them in ranch dressing. But I pick my sweet peppers a little bit early before it starts picking up a little bit more of the heat. Now, I grew a bunch of other peppers here. I think these are bell peppers, red peppers, and yellow peppers. I wanted to get some colored variety peppers this year instead of just the green ones. And the reason I went ahead and covered this with a little bit of covering is I noticed this grow light here. It's fairly strong. It's good for when the plants are, an inch tall or a couple inches tall and has about 1 or 2 sets of true leaves on there. But I noticed when they are very new, you'll notice that the leaves look like they're a little bit singed, and that's because the light is a little too strong. And so what I do initially is until the first and second set of true leaves are showing, I'll keep them covered with something to kind of reduce the brightness directly onto the leaves. Now, other than the peppers, I went ahead and started, I believe, some pepperoncinis and some other early season tomatoes. And I think those back there are your basic jalapenos, your basic green peppers. And they right now just are showing their just first set of leaves, the first set that comes out. But they're not the true leaves yet. They're just the ones that sprout when they first start seeding. And what I'll do is wait until the first or probably the second true set of leaves are on there, and then you'll notice that one of them, you can see that the true leaf is coming out there. So once that grows and sets up a couple more foliages, what I'll do is I start taking them outside on the very first day. I'll take them outside to get them hardened off. It will be a cloudy day. Contrary to what most people think, it's a good idea to harden your plants off before they get too leggy. But you want to do that, start them off with 1 or 2 hours outside on a cloudy day and let them get acclimated to being outside. And so don't leave your plants outside if they're indoors growing from a seedling or from seeds until they show about their second set of true leaves or third set of true leaves. And when you do, try to pick a cloudy day. And it's okay if it's not hot outside. If it's cool, that's okay. And just let them be outside for no more than 1 to 2 hours, and just kind of build that time up until you can kind of basically set them outdoors all day, and they'll be fine. Now, these are the extra set of cabbage I grew. I grew maybe a dozen cabbage already, and you've already seen it outside. The first set that I grew almost a month and a half ago. And I realized after I gave a few away to some neighbors, I decided I wanted some more. So I started some more seedlings here in the perlite. I kind of tend to like to grow the cabbage in perlite. That way I can just water soak it and then pull them out very easily and transfer them into basically where it'll be stationed for the rest of the time. And I pretty much use anything I can get my hands, I can get hold of. So these are kind of Red Robin takeout food order containers. So I went ahead and grew different kinds of peppers in those, and they're kind of like a little humidity dome for now. And so those are the indoor plants that I have right now. Now let me go outside and show you what's going on with the plants that I transferred outside today. Some of the plants looked a little bit leggy, and so I realized I had to hurry up and get them outdoors. It looked like the Roma tomatoes were getting really leggy, so I started taking them out last week, and we'll build that up. And later today, I'm going to go ahead and plant some more lettuce. A friend from California gave me this butter crunch lettuce, and my neighbor gave me the red leaf lettuce, and I already grew a set already and it came out perfect. And so I'm going to go ahead and grow some more. Here you can see the beans that I have. I kept them indoors a little too long. I had them in a kind of a different part of the house and I kind of forgot about it actually. And so they got on a little leggy, but over time they'll go ahead and strengthen up, and then I'll plant them in those coolers since I grow them hydroponically. And these are, I believe these are Roma tomatoes. And as you noticed, they're kind of leggy a little bit. And so I brought them out here on a cool day when I first started, and I'll go ahead and grow those or leave them outdoors all day today, and they've already built up the tolerance. So what I'll basically do is I'll keep these indoors in the evening, and then I'll bring them out during the daytime and let them get acclimated to being outdoors, and try to strengthen the main stem so that it doesn't get so leggy. And that's part of the reason why I brought these early peppers out here. And I picked a semi-cool day and a cloudy day. And right now they're holding up pretty good stem-wise, but if I leave them indoors too much longer, even under the grow light, they'll tend to get a little leggy and have a hard time standing up. And so I brought them outdoors to harden them off. And same thing with these green peppers. These are green peppers. These are early peppers. And these green peppers, I'm going to have a ton of green peppers to eat this year. But these are looking pretty good. As you can see, they're already forming their first set of true leaves. Some of them have their second set of true leaves just kind of peeking out. And so they look pretty good. And then, so I know it's a little bit harder to see, but this is the cabbage here. And I grew a whole bunch more cabbage. I do need to start covering this bag fairly quickly because bugs will seem to get at the leaves, and of course that's what we want it to form. And we want in the center it's going to form its head. And what I'll probably do is get a kind of diluted water bottle formula of neem oil spray, and I'll spray them down one day, and once I'm done spraying it, I'll cover it so that way the bugs can't get at it, and I'll let them start forming its cabbage heads in the center. And as you can see, look, this is one of the other cabbages. You can see that the bugs are getting at the lettuce leaf here. And what will happen is they'll start forming its main head in the center there. And so I'll have to go ahead and spray it down with neem oil, get them ready to, harden them off, and then get them ready to grow its center head. And what I'll do is I'll cover them early on because with anything that's lettuce, cabbage, leafy related, bugs can easily get at it. So it's a really good idea to go ahead and get them covered as soon as possible. Now, I'm not sure if I went over this before, but for basically shits and giggles, I took a green pepper seed from a green pepper that I bought at the store, and I planted this almost 2 months ago. And as you can see, there's a couple flowers setting here. I'm going to pinch that off because I don't want it to start flowering and fruiting yet. It's a little bit cool outside. I bring this indoors at night. Now, typically, the reason why we don't want to take seeds from the grocery store from vegetables that we buy is, growers, commercial growers, they pick their fruit so early. What ends up happening is the seeds are immature. And so you don't really have a successful or healthy, you won't get a healthy plant most times, or the germination is really bad. I believe I planted, I think I planted 8 green pepper seeds indoors, and it took a lot longer for them to germinate. And on top of that, only 3 out of the 8 germinated. And so I had 3 plants, and then 2 of the plants just died. They just couldn't survive. And so I was left with the single 1 out of 8 seeds that I planted into becoming a decent looking plant. Now I'll go ahead and pinch this seed off right here. I don't want it to flower. Anytime you want the plant to keep on growing, establishing its main stem, Early in the season, you want the plant to flourish and put all its energy toward getting bigger and taller and stronger. You'll go ahead and pinch off those flowers because you don't want it to flower and set its fruit. You want the plant to keep on growing and doing well. Now, I took some old potatoes and put them in buckets. Potatoes are great to grow in buckets. As the flowers grow up, the leaves and the stem keep on growing higher. What you'll do is you'll keep on covering it with more soil because the nodes in those stems is what sets the potatoes. So as this keeps on growing up, I'll keep on covering more and more dirt on top of it, letting it settle, and then eventually down the road it'll go ahead and set the nodes, and that's how the potatoes form. Now here are the peas that I grew very early. That was the first growing session, right? So I grew the cabbage, cauliflower, and the broccoli. Now the problem I've had with the peas that I didn't have last year because I grew them a different way was I have rabbits in the yard, and they've been coming by at night, and they basically have been eating and chomping off at the stems. And so that's why it's taken so long for these to successfully grow. So I've kind of either covered them. I covered them once I noticed the rabbits in the yard, and then I also try to put buckets around it so that way they can't get access to the main stem. Now here are the tomatoes that I was growing indoors. And these ones aren't quite as bad as the ones I showed you before, but these are tomato plants that started getting a little leggy from being indoors too much. And so I let them grow a little too big before taking them outside and hardening them off. So I went ahead, here's a beetle, that's not good. Kill that thing. And so anytime I see a beetle, I'll kill that sucker because they love to chew on the vegetables. But anyways, these tomatoes have been a little bit leggy. And as you can see the wind kind of blowing the leaves, that's good because as the wind kind of hits these plants, it'll help harden the main stem so that way it can support itself. And so I brought these out here. The wind is kind of blowing on it. It's getting the natural light, which is very good for it. And although I do have the grow light indoors, eventually you need to harden them off. And I try to do that, once the second or third true set of leaves are showing. I got some of these tomatoes out here a little too late. And as you can see, the ones that are on top of the trunk of the car here, they've gotten a little leggy here. And so these tomatoes here, these happen to be the Romas. They're a little bit leggy, and I've had to use a little skewer sticks to keep them propped up so they don't fall down. And they'll be fine. They'll get hardened off, and the stems will get stronger, but I probably should have brought them out a little bit earlier. Now this pepper plant is amazing. This pepper plant here is already starting to set the flowers, and it'll set the fruit. And I want this plant to keep on growing, so I'm going to pinch these off. I don't want these setting fruit yet, so I don't want to pinch off. I don't want to pinch off the flowers. I want to be very careful, or I don't want to pinch off the leaves. But I'm going to pinch off those flowers in the center there, and let it focus all its energy toward growing the plant itself, making it nice and healthy. And then I want it to continue to add more foliage. Now these are cherry tomatoes, and the cherry tomatoes, I noticed the stems are a lot more hardy, a lot more thicker, and so they seem to be just fine. But I still do want to get them out here in the natural elements and get them hardened off. And these are red bell peppers. So these are seeds that I actually bought with mature seeds from a reputable seller that I've been using for a number of years, and grew them. These won't be planted outdoors for a little while yet, but that's kind of basically what's going on. Now, these are the snow peas that have really struggled because I had that rabbit problem. So I kind of blocked it off and barricaded it with these buckets all around it. I did go ahead and the other set here is under a little tarp here, and basically a plant bag. And these are bags that I use for the winter on the fruit trees to keep them warmer. But I temporarily using them right now for the snow peas, sugar peas, and the snap peas, just because the rabbits were getting at it. And I had, just for a little bit of experiment, I grew some snow peas in 5 gallon Home Depot and Lowe's buckets, and they've actually done really well. I put in about 7 to 10 snow peas plants, kind of spaced them out inside the 5 gallon buckets, and they've done a really good job of growing really well. And although it does take a fair amount of either soil or perlite in order to put them in a 5 gallon bucket, I do like the way it's grown. It's done really well. So that right there is, let's see here, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's about 10 sugar snap peas in this bucket and doing really well. Now, there's a beetle right there. I don't know how I got in there. So here is the cabbage that I grew almost 6 to 8 weeks ago. And as you can see, that head is forming inside. You can see it right there. The head is already forming, so doing pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this covered with the bag. The reason for that is it's easy for bugs to get at cabbage and start chewing them off. There's bugs inside this bag too, so every so often it's a good idea to take the bag off and just turn it inside out to get those bugs out of there. Now, I do my lettuce as cut and grow method. And so what I did was I went ahead and I took those red leaf lettuce seeds that my neighbor down the street gave me, and then I took the seeds that my friend from California gave me, which is the green leaves, which is the butter crunch lettuce. And I put the seeds on one side, each on one side. And I've already cut them once already about a week ago. Used them for a salad. And I cut it kind of near at the bottom. And as you can see, it's already grown back in 1 week. And so I'll just keep on cutting and growing and eating, basically. Eventually, typically what happens is the leaves tend to get a little bit bitter after you cut them the third and fourth time on most lettuces. And so I'm going to test this out and see how many times I can cut and grow this lettuce without it starting to be too bitter. Now, once I start getting a little bit of bitterness in my salad lettuce that I grow, what I typically do is I just kind of make like a kind of a Mediterranean type salad where I'll use kind of balsamic vinegar or oil and vinegar. And it kind of takes away a little bit of the bitterness with the type of dressing I'm using. And so I'll do that for maybe the last cutting or the second to last cutting, and see how that works. But I'm hoping that with the butter crunch and the red leaf lettuce, it doesn't get as bitter by the time I get to the third and fourth and fifth cutting session. And so I'm just kind of keeping my fingers crossed and seeing exactly how many cuttings I can get without the lettuce turning into a bitter leaf. So this will be a trial and error kind of situation, and I'll kind of report back to you guys and let you know how it worked out. Now, I do grow my lettuce a lot in perlite, and on top of the perlite, I also use a kind of a water-based formula instead of soil. And so I'm wondering if that's going to help cut down the bitter, to see if it cuts down on the bitterness. But these two have grown, both the cabbage and the lettuce has grown really well in the 5-gallon buckets that I've been using. And the fact that I can take these paint strainer bags and cover the lettuce and the cabbage to keep it from, from the bugs getting at it has been really good. So that's a little bit of an update on the garden so far. And I'll be planting the next set of late spring seeds indoors this week, probably even actually today or tomorrow, actually, since we're already, I think, at May 2nd. And what I'll be planting are early season beans. They do like warm weather, but you can get some early season beans. I'll plant some peppers that are early season peppers that are the hot variety that I like to add in salsa. And then I'll plant some cucumbers, and they'll be, I'll grow them a few now and a few a month from now. But those are the three I'll plant. Now, I'm going to hold off a little bit longer until probably mid-May or later May for the zucchini and eggplant, especially eggplant. They tend to like a lot more heat. And so with the pickling cucumbers, with the eggplant, they'll be later this month that I'll plant the seedlings indoors. And then with the early season longer cucumbers that are, cold tolerant, or they can handle a little bit of, it doesn't have to be warm in order to grow. I'll end up growing the regular English cucumbers right now, here today or tomorrow. And so the cucumbers, some of the early peppers, some of the beans that are, aren't, are slightly cold tolerant. I'll grow those first, and then wait 2 or 3 weeks as we get later to end of May, and that's when I'll start with the zucchini, the eggplant, and the rest of the beans, and the rest of the cucumbers, like the pickling cucumbers. And so by then, by the time we get into mid to late May, basically you'll have, if you're starting from seed, you'll have planted all your seeds. Now, I do plan on planting some pumpkin this year, and based on our calendar schedule here and the heat schedule almanac for the Pacific Northwest area, it's a good idea to go ahead and start planting your pumpkin for October. If you want to have them ready in the month of October, you'll have to get them planted on May 21st up to June 21st. And so I'll plant half the amount on May 21st, and then the other half I'll plant on June 21st, and that should allow me to have pumpkins in the month of October.